All right, here we go.
Let's do it.
Hello and welcome everyone again to another great episode of Building Experiences with me, Mark Schultz. And thanks again for tuning in. We have a number of sessions that we've done over the last year and a half while a lot of us have been working from home and in lockdown, and gone through a number of great topics, from everything to do with development skills and digital assets, and we've got a lot more coming. So if you haven't already, friendly reminder, subscribe, have a look at the previous sessions, and give us some feedback around what topics you'd like to see. But this show is all about bringing in, great talent and great experience into the discussion. So I want to get straight into welcoming our guest today from the Adobe product family. So let's have a look at that. All right, welcome, Alex.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me. That was quite the red carpet there.
Oh yeah, well, it is the real talent that we only have the best on this show. So thanks for joining us, and second time on the show.
Second time, yeah. It's great to be back.
So previously we had you on talking about some 3D content work. So maybe for the people who haven't watched that session or don't know you, maybe explain who you are and what your role is at Adobe.
Yeah, for sure. So, Alex Thiers, I'm a senior product manager on the AEM assets team. And I joined Adobe in the consulting organization, so I really come to the table with a lot of that consultative discovery mindset. And I moved to the product team and was the product owner for dynamic media. Is what Scene 7 used to be. And now I kind of own all of what we call emerging technology. So this includes everything from 3D and AR and VR experiences to a lot of our digital video efforts, to Creative Cloud integrations, Document Cloud integrations, and even AI and machine learning functionality. So a lot of the cutting edge functionality and investment and research that Adobe's doing comes under my my radar, which is fun.
I think there's a lot of people watching going, that sounds like the coolest job ever. 3D, AR, VR, I work with creative, at Adobe. So it sounds like fun. So, what are kind of the key areas that, or challenges you're facing or helping to solve?
We there's a lot. It's a great question. There's a lot of areas you can tackle. There's a lot of areas for our customers who are typically enterprise customers that we can solve for. And the pandemic, the COVID global situation has really highlighted a lot of trends we were seeing before, which was around a need to not just streamline content operations, whether those are photo shoots or product to marketing, but really accelerate that velocity. And of course, COVID just made that a lot more obvious. And so we talk about this a lot on the AEM asset side about how we're unlocking content velocity. And that's really one of the areas I feel emerging technology can really unlock that in new and exciting ways. So whether that's with AI-based features for tagging or rendition creation, or working with Creative Cloud on asset generation, or looking at videos and 3D files as a new master asset or master type of content where you can generate all your downstream content from that one single asset. It's really exciting.
Yeah, so new formats and just doing things faster so you can produce more content sounds like the order of the day.
It's the promise.
All right. So it's not just a promise though; it's reality, right? So you've been working on something called content automation.
That's it. And so content automation, I love it because it's both the name of this offering. It's an add-on to AEM Assets Cloud Service, but it's also a concept, right? How are we powering that content velocity? And so we have this new offering that's an integration of the Creative Cloud APIs, specifically Photoshop Lightroom and image cutout through Sensei as API cloud native services directly integrated with AEM using Adobe Firefly, which is our serverless runtime environment through Adobe I/O. So a lot of really exciting cutting edge technology that's directly integrated into AEM in a way where A, you don't need to be a developer, and B, you don't need to even know the creative tools. You can be a complete marketer persona, a content author in AEM, and generate all of this content, marketing ready, final use ready content in seconds. And it's just really exciting that we've done so in a way that doesn't cut out those specialists, those developers, or the creative specialists. We've actually enabled the functionality so it really preserves their intentions, but they don't have to learn AEM. So it's
Yeah, I
really
think
exciting.
that's at first glance, you could look at this and go, "Oh my God, we're removing the need for a creative person," but it's more about amplifying it, right? It's about doing more with the talent you've got. I mean, creative people. I've worked with a lot of creative people, working with Adobe, but even prior to that, it's the mundane task that everyone just goes, don't tell me to open Photoshop just to go and create, 7 different crops of the same image. Don't
Exactly.
get me to just, swap layers and things like that. So I'm assuming that's kind of the focus area is removing the mundane or automating it to make everyone faster.
That's exactly it. I mean, I think there's always going to be a place for a special place, really, for that subjective creative intuition, that creative direction, whether it's an art director or someone approving that stuff. But there's, like you said, there's these repeatable mundane tasks like cropping, image cutout, that no one really gets that excited to do,
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so being able to automate that really frees up those creative personas to either just approve what that automation service outputs, touch up what's needed. And we've seen scenarios where that one person can go from cropping and doing image cutouts to just approving assets at 50 times the speed
Yeah.
of what they were doing it manually.
And before we get into the product, and if this is just faster.
Yeah. It's a great question. I mean, I would say we tend to fall back to that marketer role because that's the traditional role for AEM. But I like to broaden my definition of that to think of things like education management, like internal facing marketing in
Yeah.
that regard, where you're really marketing the product or knowledge, even if it's an internal only audience. And um, those folks are dependent on the creative teams, whether that's a third party service or an in-house team. There's dependencies. Everyone has their own timeline, their own backlog. And so when you have an urgent issue or an urgent need to generate something
Yeah.
quickly, you can't, unless you've got some favors to call in, you can't just go get that done right away. You have to put in that ticket. And so enabling that within AEM for things that are automatable, repeatable, it really unlocks that marketer in a broader sense to do what they need
Yeah.
without having to really know Photoshop. Like they can go request a new Photoshop action from that specialist, upload it to AEM, update their profile, and generate all their content. And if you can streamline things to that degree, you get a lot more space for your creative professionals to do what you want them doing, not generating 20 different renditions.
Yeah.
Because in the manual way, it's not just updating the specs or the requirements. They then have to go export all those different variations.
Yeah, and I think there's also that kind of hidden pain point around requesting it and having a meeting and collaborating and the whole briefing process versus can I just create it right now on the fly, right? So I think if anyone's watching, they're like, can you just show me this stuff already? It sounds really cool. So how about we transition into that?
Let's do it.
All right, so let's have a look, Alex, at some of the cool innovation. I know you've done plenty of demonstrations. I want to make sure that we highlight that. So you're good to go to show off some cool stuff.
Yeah, I think so. Are you seeing my screen share coming through?
We are, yeah.
All right. So I've got my AEM cloud service environment open here. I've got a demo asset folder here. I've got content automation set up. So I'm going to go through a couple of the features, the operations as we call them, that we've unlocked here. And then we can also set one up from scratch so people can see how easy it is to really set this up from the very get-go. So we've got 7 operations here. We can summarize these as Lightroom Presets, Lightroom Auto Straighten, Lightroom Autotone. We've got Photoshop Smart Object Replacement, Photoshop Actions, and image cutout. And image cutout is both image cutout and image masking. So you can generate a mask, you can generate the image where that mask is actually applied and the background's cut out. But you actually get 2 for the price of 1, so to speak. What do you think, Mark? Which one do we want to look at first?
Well, how about we let's start simple and then we get a little bit crazy as we go through. So, like, let's some of the basics around. I want to make sure all my images are straightened and have the right color profile. So maybe some of the Lightroom capabilities.
Yeah, there we go. So I brought in this image from Adobe Stock, and I actually took it off kilter because Stock's great about having just real high quality assets. But what's interesting about this feature is that it uses an Adobe Sensei algorithm to identify the horizon. And here we see a great ocean shot with a dock, but obviously the horizon is off. And the Sensei algorithm determines that this is not level. And when we upload it, we've already applied that profile that's determining we want to do this auto straighten. And so we get a rendition here added. And here we see it's a perfectly horizontal rendition.
That's pretty cool.
Great to add that it's also been cropped to just that bare minimum degree. So you're not losing too much of the image, but it is a fully marketing ready image here in this case.
And I'm assuming that that you've taken an image example that's the extreme, but quite often it's out by like 2 or 3%, and it's just a subtle thing that you might not pick up when you're importing a whole bunch of imagery, but having Sensei automate that just gets everything a little bit more sharp and a little bit more clear, right?
Exactly, and it also unlocks these kind of workflows where you can give, say, photo studios or even 3D renderings. Teams generating creative teams generating those 3D renderings. Those often have horizons that are not perfectly level, and so you can enable them to upload directly to AEM and have that perfected, knowing it's going to be right. And if it doesn't detect anything, there's cases where I've tested this as real complex images. It doesn't do anything, right? Like if it doesn't detect a horizon, it won't adjust it on the fly. It's really going to just take a step back and not do any processing in that regard.
So I guess the first kind of use case or grouping is just correcting and making sure there's some hygiene around your assets as you're bringing them in. So, you showed auto straighten, but also color profiles, making sure everything's the right tone is generally, something that maybe customers would do for every single image they bring in.
Yeah, and I think Autotone's a great example of where you can upload straight from a photo shoot, right? You don't have to go through that traditional color adjustment phase in post-production where you can unlock that upload straight to the DAM, accelerate that real far upstream phase of the asset lifecycle, and using, again, a Sensei algorithm to adjust the color values, get that, again, marketing ready within seconds right in the DAM.
And to be clear, these are not... this is not just AI deciding what the images should look like. This is bringing in like a preset from Lightroom, correct? And allowing you to define that versus just getting something random.
Exactly. And I think the Lightroom presets are a great example of that. So I've actually uploaded a few presets that we exported from Lightroom, and these get exported as an XMP file. So you upload it to AEM, and then we created this processing profile that references that preset, and it basically says that, hey, we want to create all these different renditions in this format as a JPEG, right? In certain size dimensions or image resolutions, right? And apply this Lightroom preset. Apply multiple Lightroom presets. And so here, this is a great example. I feel this is actually a 3D rendering from our 3DI products, but I would say this is ready for production marketing use. It's already siloed. It's already gone through post production, so to speak. But what's great is that with these different Lightroom presets, you can apply these kind of aging filters where it's doing it intelligently. We're not actually changing the background color at all in this case. It's giving it that kind of vintage aged photo look. And again, like you said, you can tailor that to whatever your creative direction is as a art director. And then once it's saved, exported, uploaded to AEM, every image is processed in that way. I think it's really amazing because it strikes the right balance of automating it with the right creative inputs, right?
Yeah.
Not cutting them out, but really embracing why they're so valuable, and then freeing them to not have to do all the tedious work.
Yeah, I think it helps with brand consistency as well, right? So often you'll see a style guide, a brand guideline, and they'll get into tonal qualities of imagery, etc. So being able to say, all right, let's just set and forget that almost. So it's not relying on the supply of the images to make sure that they get the settings, they do it, and then upload into the asset library. You just upload the asset, and the asset library makes sure that everything's consistent, right? So
Exactly.
very big difference. So I guess if we move from that, making sure all the images are consistent into something that's more around, working the image and doing something with it. What have you got in mind?
Yeah, so that's a great segue. So, a couple things here. I think image cutout is probably one of the most exciting features that we have in here. And here I uploaded a photo of myself cheesing here, but I'll start with this mascara rendering, which is also a 3D rendering from our Adobe 3DI team, which has a staged background. But again, what we often see from the AEM perspective is that this kind of imagery is really actually quite common. I mean, we've got customers, major retailers, global retailers, where the majority of their in-house brand imagery and product imagery is rendered from a 3D asset.
Yeah.
And so even in that scenario, they're uploading a final image like this. And it's unfortunate how often we see that somewhere downstream someone has to come in and do a manual cropping or a manual cutout. And so in this case we've automated that, and because this is a clean image, it's really ready to go for that algorithm, that AI algorithm, to do that cutout. So this works really well for products that are shot in a photo studio or rendered out, and you got to do that final image cutout for compositing. But what I think is so amazing about this is how well it does people and hair. And as someone who's done some creative production in a past life, I can confidently say that doing background knockout on hair is something I don't think anyone is ever excited to do.
Oh yeah.
It's
I used to
it's
do
just
that. I used to live in Photoshop, 8 to 10 hours a day, and hair was just like, oh no.
it's the worst, because you psych yourself out, and so you think like, no, I have to really get in there. And so now, granted, this is maybe not the best example because I don't have a whole lot of hair, but
It's better than using me. So.
yeah, but you can see, I mean, it's amazing that I uploaded this asset, and within literally less than 10 seconds, it generated this rendition. where all of the hair is properly masked out, and it's just ready to use for downstream compositing. If you have other features like dynamic media where you have smart cropping enabled, you can set up this real nice almost this production chain directly within AEM to generate all this imagery. I think smart crop is probably one of the more exciting assets, not just because of the result and how much it accelerates the content velocity, but it's also something that a lot of customers have like known use cases for. A lot of cases there's someone doing this or a budget for doing this or hiring a third party to do that work. And so enabling that directly within AEM is a really tangible way to get that short-term immediate ROI on this.
Yeah, and I
It's
think one of the things to keep in mind as well, it's non-destructive, right? So you've always got the original image, and I know, again, working with creatives, sometimes, oh, wait, but no, I need to have the final precision control.
exactly.
And I think one way to look at it is to say, well, like any automation, if you can automate 90% of it and then just go and correct the 10%, it's a lot better than doing 100%, right? And so you still have that freedom.
That's exactly it. And we have CC libraries integration coming, and we have asset links. So you can, again, directly within AEM, really accelerate that transition of that asset as it moves along these different phases and different locations in that process. And I think with that in mind, it's what I find so exciting about all of this is it's really allowing us to think more broadly of AEM from just being a repository of like final assets that are really rigid and with high governance as it should be, but there's also now this new budding area which is more of a workspace, like a content workspace where things are in flux, and I find that's there's a parallel between that and what we're seeing and hearing from our customers, that things are so fast and so rapid that there is no longer this rigid state of an asset life cycle, that the more they can reuse existing assets and automate the rapid fire need for new content, the better. So really exciting to see not just what we're doing here, but where our customers are seeing the unlock.
I totally agree, and this is this is a new capability to Experience Manager. We should add. So before we get into the really crazy use cases, is there anything more you want to show about cutouts or masks, etc.?
Well, I think Photoshop Actions is what we should look at
Yeah,
next,
let's take a
because
look.
I said image cutout is one of the most exciting. I would say Photoshop Actions is the next one. Um, I mentioned that this feature is an integration between the AEM and the Creative Cloud APIs, and in general, that those teams are developing new APIs, and we'll be integrating them over time. But what's great about Photoshop Actions is that it allows you the ability to set up this multi-step workflow with features that aren't actually available through the Photoshop APIs. They're supported in the Photoshop desktop application. And so you can record that action and then upload it to AEM. And then it's actually all of those recorded steps in the action are respected through the API. And it's astounding, I feel, that the opportunity and the unlock there to do literally anything you can do in the desktop application and have that creative professional record that in their application of choice, and then send it off and have that creative direction respected. I think it's astounding, like I
Yeah,
said. So
yeah.
we got a picture of our friend Sean White here, and we created this action to create a banner. Let me see if I have this here. Yeah, here we go. So it's doing a number of things here. It's actually cropping his image. It's doing some color adjustment. We're creating multiple new layers, text layers, image adjustment layers, and generating a final banner rendition, which was a few months ago at Adobe Summit 2021. Um, we could literally take this Photoshop action that we have here, open it in Photoshop, adjust that to 2022, and then once uploaded again, process hundreds, thousands of our assets that we want to generate new banners with.
And for someone who doesn't know what a Photoshop action is, maybe can you just explain, what's the effort to create one?
Yeah. It's a good question. So it's similar to like an Excel macro. Someone described that to me recently. And so you think you can open Excel and you can record all these different steps that you're doing in that desktop application, save it, and then apply it in the future. So you can, for repeatable tasks, it's really a great way to set up these multi-step workflows in those desktop applications. So I think Excel is a great way to think about it from a data management perspective with an Excel macro. And in Photoshop, that was their way to really enable automation directly within the Photoshop desktop app. Here, we've just uploaded it to the DAM and created a profile, which is doing the same thing. It's almost literally the same thing as playing that Photoshop action in the desktop application, except we're doing it here. And I think what's amazing is that you can generate not only marketing ready content like this, but you can also use it for design iteration. If you have a team that needs to come up with new content and you're in that earlier upstream phase of creating ideas, it's a great tool as well for this. As you can see here with the combination of both headshots and landscape, both with interesting results.
Yeah, so I mean, you could easily see there. You could start throwing a whole bunch of images and just saying, "Hey, which one looks the best?" And getting that immediate results versus booking studio time to go and sit over someone's shoulder, which creative people hate, by the way, and and then start going, "Oh, try this image. No, try this image." It just allows speeding that up. And
Exactly.
again, if you don't like the design or you want to tweak it, you go back into Photoshop, you pop open the action, you tweak the design there. So
That's it.
yeah, I think this is something that we'll see a lot of. And then you're showing one action, but you start thinking about having multiple actions, different sizes. Every customer I show this to immediately thinks about social media and the different sizes there and different use cases. So from an audience perspective, a channel perspective, and also just speeding up the production time, I think there's a lot of effort effort saved there.
Well, that's exactly it. I think that's a great segue too, because there's another one, smart object replacement, which we can show where you're replacing a layer in that Photoshop file that you produce. And in this case here, we have it's a t-shirt. But we've got another sample from the weekend, our demo site, which is like an outdoor activity, which I think is another interesting application. These APIs, these features are really flexible in that they can be used in a lot of ways. And that banner creation is another really cool example of where there's just this real tedious need to generate the same content, right? The same material in these banners, but in all these different sizes.
Yeah.
And landscape we saw in the last example, and here we have a portrait example. So I mean, if you don't mind, we can actually get this set up and do a live demo of how this would be set up.
Let's show the effort, because
scratch.
again, like the idea is that you can go and configure this without being a developer. You can start to go and create your own, workflows here. So, all right, so you've got the PSD file. What happens next?
Yeah, here we go. So we have this PSD file, and let's say this came from our creative team. So that background image is what we want to swap out. We want to see these different versions of that. So the team set that as a smart object layer. Now, we've already uploaded this file to AEM. What I'm going to do is why don't I just open up another window? So accelerate this a little bit. So what I'll do here is I'll go to Tools, and I'm going to drop down to Assets, and we'll see our processing profile card right here. Now, I'm going to create a new processing profile, and I'm going to use that Photoshop asset from our team. So let's just call this AEM weekend banner. And I'm going to go to my creative tab. Now, when you license content automation, you will see this creative tab. Typically, you would just see the image, video, and custom worker. And we also have this creative tab that shows up when you've licensed this. So I'm going to
probably just to interrupt for a second. It's probably worth pointing out this is in cloud service. So it's right now it's only available in AEM as a cloud service. Just to clarify that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So here I've added a new rendition that we're going to create under this creative tab. And I've got a few options here. And these are all those different operations I mentioned. We've got Lightroom Preset, Auto Straighten, Autotone, Cutout, etc. So I'm going to choose Photoshop Smart Object. And here it'll give me an asset picker to pick the actual file we want to use here. So we'll navigate over to our weekend folder. We'll find the PSD file we picked and we'll select that. And then we get another drop down here. And what this is doing is it's actually looking within that PSD file to see if there are any smart object layers. And in this case, we do have the one. It's that background image. So we're going to select this. But it gives you some configurability in this. If you have a PSD file with multiple layers, you can actually really configure this to a great degree, to a granular level on which ones you want to swap out. We're gonna create full resolution, full quality rendition. So I'm gonna select PSD here and leave the width and height as is. And I've got to enter in a name here. So we'll do new banner. All right. Now we have that profile created. So let's go back here. I'm going to just apply this new profile that we created to this folder here. And it's worth noting what processing profiles are traditionally for. They really just define the kind of renditions that are generated out of the box in AEM when you upload an asset. So whether that's the kind of rendition you want for a PSD file, you can define that as a PNG or a JPEG. Or when you upload certain video files, the resolution of that MP4 that you want for previewing, that's where you would define that. Yep. So it gets applied to folders. And here we've gone into the properties section, and we're just going to apply that profile to this folder here. What did I call it? Weekend banner. Now, once that profile is actually applied to that folder, every asset that you upload to that folder that fits within the allowed MIME type list, so you can filter based on MIME types, but literally every asset you upload from there on out will be processed. So let's throw a bunch at this. Let's see, we got a few nice outdoor shots. Here we go. These are great. That one's the one we're using there, isn't it? So let's drop those 7 in there. Now, what's going to happen is that we're uploading these to AEM. First step, there's going to be some out-of-the-box processing, like generating those out-of-the-box renditions for previewing that, like whatever we defined as that web rendition or that secondary rendition that we want. After that, it's going to be sending that asset to the Photoshop or Lightroom APIs, and with those settings that we defined in that profile. So every one of these images is actually a different resolution in itself, but they're all being sent to the Photoshop API in their original resolution and processed according to that profile. So using that PSD file with the object, it will just swap out that layer. The result comes back in a standardized way. So we can actually set that to be whatever the original resolution is of that image, of the source image. We can set it to be something specific for like a known definition or known spec for an end use case. But it's really powerful in that regard. Allows you a lot of flexibility.
And one
So
thing, just while it's processing, is that you've set it to be a rendition, but you can also create a new file as well, right?
that's exactly it. By default, the results will always come back as a rendition. But one of the things we've added in this new part of the processing profile is that you can actually generate a brand new image with that result. And that allows you to do things like publish to dynamic media. You can run it through Smart Crop in dynamic media. You know, you can do a lot more things with that downstream versus just with a rendition. So it's really enabling you as a user that flexibility to use it as a rendition in a package of that whole set of content
Yeah.
for that asset, or really have this become a whole new asset in and of itself. So we'll give it a few seconds. We just kind of hammered it, but look at that. We already got most of them there. So let's see what these look like. And we can see we've got all of our different out of the box renditions. We've got some dynamic media renditions. And here we have our weekend banner cropped, processed. Really nice, actually.
Makes me look forward to the weekend.
Oh man, tell me about it. I wish I had these skills. Let's see what some of the other ones look like. I find when I use some of these features, it's almost like searching for gold. You know, the results are so like just so impactful and so fast, like in a matter of seconds. Gives me goosebumps. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I would say both of those are absolutely marketing ready.
yeah, looks good. Yeah.
So that's what we got, man. It's really exciting, you know. I think, and this is really just the beginning. I mentioned we have the Photoshop APIs, Lightroom APIs, and the Sensei image cutout. But that's just the start, right? I mentioned at the beginning, this content automation is not just the name of this add-on, this the SKU to buy, but it's also a concept, and we
Yeah.
feel that the long-term vision is to see a lot more of those Creative Cloud APIs in here. So watch this space.
Yeah, so let's just talk about that. So first of all, this is not, future, beta product. This is production, shipping today.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. This has been live for a few months now. So the only prerequisite is that you're assets cloud service customer. Other than that, no Creative Cloud license needed. No other prerequisites.
yeah, good. And then, I mean, let's start to think about future. So, are you done, or what's next?
It's a great question. So we've already been working with the 3DI team, Adobe 3DI, so Dimension, Substance, that those folks. They've developed some really exciting APIs. InDesign is another one that's on our radar, where we have InDesign Server, but we also have the APIs that those teams are developing. A little bit future down the roadmap or down the backlog, we could say, is DVA, and so Premiere, After Effects,
Mm,
Audition, all of that. So there's an overall initiative for all of Creative Cloud to develop these APIs for various uses, and so it's really exciting for us to be able to tap into that,
yeah,
these known, real high value operations, and being able to natively integrate them directly within to AEM. Something no one else can do.
sounds exciting. Anything you can share is kind of like what's in the immediate future, in the next 6 months or so that you're looking to bring out.
Yeah. Well, it's
Not
good
putting you on
timing
the
because
spot,
we're
just kind of
yeah,
direction.
yeah. So there's a few things. So in general, what we want to do is over time, each of those products that I mentioned are going to be adding more APIs. So Photoshop, for example,
Yeah.
they're adding new capabilities within that set of APIs that we already have available. There's also things like adding better support for PSD exports
Okay.
versus just PNG or JPEG, conditional actions, using data points like metadata values as input for some of those actions. So like having a text field as the source of a text layer. PSD. Really exciting options for accelerating. And then looking more broadly, I would say look to see some 3D and some InDesign stuff included
Very exciting.
in the
I mean,
coming
I
year.
think it's one of those things that this is like the first step on the journey. And while there's a lot of really cool stuff, we are listening to customer input and hence some of those requests, right? And I think,
Yeah,
the PSD one, being able to not just get the result, but also get the kind of working elements in case you want to, make some changes. Exciting.
yeah, especially when you stitch it together and look at how like the sheer acceleration of that whole life cycle from taking a source 3D asset, something that came from your manufacturing design company, and sending it through these different steps of auto toning and cutout, and then layering it in after the rendering, and then placing it in a marketing banner within 5-10 minutes, and being able to put in approval steps through each of those phases.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. It's like automating the mundane and then allowing the creative elements to be there when they're needed. And then just being able to have visibility as well, right? So actually knowing where things are at, seeing, the assets in progress, I think really helps. And that goes back to basic digital asset management concepts. So,
Yeah. The usage varies by customer, by vertical, and even by internal teams. So we really need to support that those varying needs, and where they want to optimize, where they want to automate. It's not an easy problem, but it's a really exciting problem to solve. So
yeah,
it's just the first step.
sounding good. Well, unfortunately, sadly, we don't have time to talk about this all day, even though I think Alex and I could probably discuss this for hours and maybe with some virtual beers. Apparently, it was International Beer Drinking Day yesterday or something. We missed it, but maybe next year we'll have to get you back on the show and see what the results are like. It could be interesting. But look, Alex, thanks for joining. It's always great to have you, share some of the really cool things you're doing. Can I call on you to come back as soon as you've got something exciting to share?
Anytime, Mark. It's a pleasure as always, and you know where I am.
Certainly do. You're only a message away. But all right, look, for everyone, thanks for watching. Again, a subtle reminder, let's make it a bold reminder. Hit the subscribe button so you're aware of what content we're bringing out in future. So you'll know exactly when Alex is coming back. But also, share in the comments. Feel free to ask questions. But also, if there's a topic you want more detail on, put that in there, and I can go and hunt down the right people to share more. So let's wrap it up there. Thanks again, Alex, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.